Hey everyone, what's going on? This is Norm here with John Coleman of JC
Hello, everyone.
Mortgages. And we have for you today T and Mortgage Podcast episode number 41. So, how are you, John?
Good to see you again, mate. Good to see you. 41 and counting, buddy.
Yeah, we're getting up to that magic number 50, huh?
Shh.
So,
Anyway, what do you have in store for us today, my friend?
today we're going to talk about something that's definitely important for anyone who's buying a property in Ireland, but you don't find enough good information about it, whether you're searching online, on YouTube, what have you. So, this is about what happens after you go sale agreed, and you made an important distinction before we started filming.
I did indeed. Well, yeah, that's the moment whereby, as you said, there is a vacuum of information. You now, and it may not even be a vacuum. You may have got that information, but your mind has gone elsewhere. Your mind has gone to the point of trying to find a home, and then suddenly you've had to find a home, and then your first thoughts are, "Oh God, what happens next? How does it all play out?" Right now, there is the concept. If you're buying a new property and buying a second-hand property, there are two distinct. There is a difference in the process, but because what you can talk them through in general terms, and then I'll bring out the differences. If you're buying a new property, okay? So here are a new property or second hand. The first thing you're going to do is pay a booking fee, okay? That booking fee could be 5,000, 7,000, okay? That's just the process of going sale agreed. And I
Hmm.
will often get asked the question, is it okay to pay it? And I will always say, absolutely pay the booking fee, okay? Once you pay the booking fee, basically what will happen is the property comes off the market, whether it be new or second hand. Then you're not committed at that point. You can still change your mind. Okay. And that's
Hmm.
something everyone needs to be aware of. So that booking fee is 100% refundable. Okay.
Mm.
So you pay your booking fee. You would then give the estate agent the name of a solicitor that you're going to use. Okay. Because what happens then, you paid your booking fee, you give them the name of a solicitor, they will then send out the contracts to your solicitor, okay? Then you basically will be able to sign the contract, but only when you have a legal loan offer from the bank, okay?
Okay.
So basically, at that stage, when you have when the contract goes to the solicitor, that no, that process normally takes 3 to 4 weeks. Okay,
Hmm.
so that's when you're at the point of literally we've got to get a loan offer from the bank, and that's where stress can really escalate. Okay,
Hmm.
especially some people buy houses and they haven't got the bank to say yes yet, so
Oof.
that adds to quite a stressful
The
situation.
pressure is on at
The
that
pressure's
point,
on,
huh?
especially when it comes to
Yeah.
getting paperwork together. You'll never lose, and I always say to people, you'll never lose money, okay? Because your booking fee is fully refundable. But there is an emotional cost to the
Hmm.
time, and so being organized certainly is of great value because you're not because when you imagine this, you've agreed to buy a home, and then in the background they're turning the screw by putting pressure and saying you have to sign a contract within 3 weeks. Now that's always a bit of a misnomer, or they're not going to tell you you've got 2 months to sign a contract because then you'll take three, or people will. So they try to put a tight deadline to help people, to encourage people, shall we say, to move quickly. Okay. So it's literally only at the point of signing contracts are you actually fully committed to the purchase. Okay.
Okay.
So that's the sort of you, whether it's new or second hand, you put a booking fee down, you give them the name of solicitor, the contract will go to the solicitor. The solicitor will check the details of the contract to be sure he's happy, and then when you have a loan offer from the bank, he will allow you sign both the contract and the loan offer at the same time, and then you will pay your deposit. Okay.
Okay. Yep.
Now, by signing the loan offer, you're not fully saying I'm going to go with that bank, by the way, and that's an important point. But that is the process, and then you're then working towards a closing date. Okay, so let's take a new property to start with. Okay, so you're buying a new property. Well, you could be buying a new property and it's just on the basically it's not even hasn't even started to be built yet. Okay,
Yeah.
so you're then waiting for 6, 9, 12 months sometimes for the actual property to be built. You're still going to have to sign the contract, and then but given that the length of time involved, you're not necessarily going to go with the bank that you chose at the start, okay? And that's our role in that is because it's the rates that are available when you come to close the deal, not the rates that are available at the point of purchase, okay? So, but you still need a loan offer to sign the contract.
Okay.
So you would sign the contract, and if you feel there's going to be a delay, you'd get the solicitor to put a clause in to say subject to finance. Because if you're buying a house and say that your loan offer would have a 6 month life period, and say something was to happen in that period after 6 months, well, then you need to be able to protect yourself, and the solicitor will do that. So the time between going sale agreed and actually getting the keys to your house as new is kind of outside your control. Okay. But the initial process is the same. You pay your booking fee, you give them a solicitor, you sign a contract once there's a loan offer on the table, and then you wait for it to be built. And then while it's being built, you look after, and we would help you look after your insurance and all the kind of conditions that might be attached to the loan offer. Okay. So that's that process for a new property. With a second-hand property, obviously, in theory, you may well be in a position. You're not waiting for it to be built. But
yeah,
first thing that you need to think about with a second-hand property is, do I need to organize a survey? Okay, because a survey would be checking to see if there's anything that needs to be fixed with the property that you may not be able to recognize with your kind of eye on it. But a professional would look at the nuts and crannies and tell you if you're buying a sound property, or if you're not, what are the issues. So if you were doing a survey, you would kind of go, when the survey comes back, you kind of go, oh, that's going to cost me a lot to fix. Do I try to renegotiate, or do I walk away? Okay. So that will be the first thing you would think of. Obviously, if you do a survey and there's immediate things that need to be fixed, the banks will want to know the costings of what those immediate things, because they then need to see funding for that level of costing. Okay. But again, the process will be the same. You basically will have paid your booking fee, you will wait for a loan offer, and you will sign a contract. If everything's okay, it can happen in a much quicker time frame. However, when you're buying a second-hand property, it's always important to know, well, get a closing date from the people you're buying it from, because if they're selling but they're trying to buy another property at the same time, you are then at the mercy of a change, shall we say. So and that is something that can be frustrating, because suddenly, and you hear circumstances whereby you're waiting for 2 to 3 months, and then suddenly the people who are selling you the property can't find something, and then they just give up. Okay, and they go, we're going to stay where we are,
or it falls through, or they're financing, so anything happens, right?
And then you're left stuck. So that's I would always advise people when they're buying a second-hand property, make sure you find out the circumstances behind why the property is being sold, and at least get an understanding, so you're making an informed decision. Like, you may have 2 properties. One's been sold because people want their inheritance, it's in probate. Another similar property has been sold, but the people are moving on. So if there's very little between the 2 properties, I'm going for the property that's literally people are waiting on their inheritance, shall we say, rather than someone who's trying to buy another property. That's just it's all about asking the right questions, because the estate agents may or may not tell you that. They're obliged to, but it is something that you should definitely be factoring in. But just again, the process: booking fee, give them a solicitor, contracts. The solicitor will check the contract to make sure what they call the properties of sound title. Like, there'll be maps, so that the maps are basically in line with what the contract is. So there can be no boundary dispute at a later time. So your solicitor is God in this process, shall we say, because they're making sure, A, that you're buying something of good title, or clean title, I think is another word that's used. But they then also will get the money from the bank, and then they will also pay the money to the solicitor on the other side.
So they have a massive role,
massive role in the whole process. And sometimes the solicitors, you might have ever said, don't communicate as well as I would like them to do. But
I remember that's your pet peeve. You've said
that's
before,
a conversation for another day. But But from buying a home and the mortgage point of view, there is a distinct difference in terms of timing, but
Yeah.
the process is the same, and that
Mm.
ultimately is what happens next. And then obviously in the background we'll be looking at the insurance side of things, because that's something, if there's any in health issues, it's worthy of getting that looked at immediately, so that
Yeah.
can't, because one of the conditions of a mortgage will be making sure you have life insurance or mortgage protection. And obviously that we would start that conversation pretty much as even before a loan offer gets issued. We'd be starting that conversation. If you feel there could be a delay, the quicker you start that conversation is really, really important, you know?
Yeah, super important. Yeah, interesting. You've mentioned a lot of different things, and it's different. Again, sale agreed when it's a new property, a second, secondhand property. What is one of the biggest mistakes you see people make again and again when it comes to this process?
Oh, interesting question. The mistakes people make are normally before that, because we don't let people make mistakes, basically,
Mm.
at this point. Our role here is to make sure there is no mistakes, but ultimately, sometimes they don't figure out the money property, as in they're kind of, okay, I've agreed to buy that house, but they don't factor in maybe money for stamp duty, money for their legal
Mm.
fees, what work is going to be needed to be done to the house, or funds to, if it's a new property, to put furniture in. So maybe like our role here is, in terms of mistakes that can stop things happening, we manage that. But in terms
Yeah,
of people's understanding, it's probably
yeah,
the finances, the numbers. Do the numbers stack up? Do I have the money to make this happen?
yeah,
Okay. And
yeah,
they'd be the mistakes that people might make on that side. And this is the hardest thing. I say this for a guy who isn't patient, but they need to be slightly patient in the process, because
yeah,
you bought a house today, right? And I'd be of the same type mindset if it was me on the other side, right? I want this done, I want this done, I want this done, right? And it does take a little bit of time. Like, the bank aren't going to issue a loan offer within a day. The solicitor isn't going to check the contracts in a day. So that time process can take 2 to 3 weeks if there's any kind of niggly things the bank have asked for. So they're moving quickly, but not expecting a result from the bank within kind of um,
mm,
30 seconds or within a
yeah,
day or two.
yeah,
So
yeah,
the process is about 2 to 3 weeks to getting a loan offer out.
yeah.
And if there's any delays in the bank, you can always get the solicitor to buy some time for yourself.
Yeah, that's it. And 2 to 3 weeks when you're going through that very intense,
Oh, it's
emotional,
shockingly long. It's shocking
yeah,
long.
it's like dog years. It's
And if,
extended.
again, going back to the solicitor, if the solicitor isn't contact, if, like, the solicitor isn't communicating with you, you sent a message saying, have you got the contracts, and you've heard nothing from the solicitor, you're kind of going, oh, what's happening?
Yeah,
So
that's
the
tough.
advice I would always give people here is, the solicitor, I'd always be communicating with the sales agent, right? His
Yeah,
role here, you need to be chasing them down to make sure that that the contracts have gone out from the seller solicitor. So then you
yeah,
can chase your solicitor with speed. They can always chase us, because we will always communicate, right? And that's
yeah,
ultimately what we're here for. We're here to, remember, we view our role here isn't just getting a mortgage. We're here to be on your side,
yeah.
to be the person who, I suppose, takes some of the weight away from the sort of not the emotional, the kind of, oh my God, what am I doing kind of sense
Well,
of,
just make sure someone's, it's like having a great coach. Things are organized. There's a plan. There's a strategy. The timing is
yeah.
correct. Someone's looking out at the whole pitch. I didn't say field. I said pitch. You see that? And making sure
You've come
that.
a long way, my friend. You've come a long way.
So that's the
Yeah.
value, of course, of communication, and you guys are making sure everything's moving and everyone is doing what they should. So yeah, this is great information. Absolutely.
Brilliant. Well,
Yeah.
I don't think there's anything else. Obviously, that's what we're here for, in effect. So
Yeah.
don't be afraid to shout out, because this is getting the mortgage or getting the approval is one part. But then now this is what it's all about. This is why I've
Yeah.
engaged with you, John, or engaged with JC Mortgages or whatever it is. We now hold our hand, get us to the point where we're getting the keys for you. And that's, we take great pleasure in that. In truth, it's probably my team who look after it more than I do, if I was honest. My role is kind of the educational piece. Then I have a great team of people who will basically manage the whole process in the back. And obviously, I'm always in the background. My role then now will be about discussing rates and all that kind of all that exciting stuff.
Yeah. Fantastic. Well, yeah, sale agreed. And if anyone has any other questions, they could contact you, and you have a lot of informational pieces and a roadmap and things they could sink their teeth into to become well informed before they go through the process.
Fantastic. Thanks.
Yeah.
Thanks, everyone.
T and Mortgage 41. Thank you, John. Thank you, everyone, huh?
Cheers. Cheers, my friend. Talk to you soon.